I don't think I had ever really thought of myself as smart. My older brother was the smart one in my family. I think I unconsciously believed somehow that there could only be one smart person per family. Then there was another transition that changed everything. Guess what? Recovery. My life gradually became almost unrecognizable compared to the one I'd been living before. It wasn't just that I'd stopped drinking and drugging and started developing healthier habits. I became someone different, someone who values honesty, who pays attention to herself and her preferences, someone who takes responsibility for her choices, and someone who keeps showing up and is consistent. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented, emotionally overwhelmed, stuck in people-pleasing, approval-seeking, overthinking, or losing yourself in relationships, you're in the right place. This podcast is about recovery for real life. Through honest stories, practical tools, and lessons I've learned through 12-Step Recovery, boundaries work, and over 4 decades of personal growth, we explore what it actually takes to stop abandoning yourself and build a life that feels more authentic, grounded, and whole. We'll talk about things like boundaries, shame, family dysfunction, reparenting, emotional regulation, self-trust, recovery, and creating internal safety so you can stay connected to yourself even when life gets hard. I'm a boundaries coach, speaker, author, and woman in recovery. And my approach is raw, honest, practical, and sometimes a little bit, a lot, sweary. I'm also an avid beachcomber. My hands are basically always cold, so I wear fingerless gloves most of the year. And I still get weirdly excited when I spot license plates with my initials BN. I don't speak for or represent any particular 12-step fellowship, though I'm deeply grateful for the role recovery has played in my life. If you're ready for real talk, emotional healing, and practical tools to help you go from fragmented to whole, keep listening. This is episode 366, Why Transitions Change How You See Yourself and Why That's a Good Thing. One of the things I've noticed over the years is that some of the biggest transitions in my life have also become some of the biggest turning points in how I saw myself. As I've shared in previous episodes this month, transitions often require us to reset our routines. But as I've been thinking more about it, I don't actually think routines are the deepest part of the story. I think transitions are really about identity. And that's why they can feel so uncomfortable. As I'm recording this, I'm about to enter another transition myself. After working exclusively for myself for the past 2.5 years, I'm about to start a part-time job while continuing to run my coaching business. Now, on the surface, that may sound like it's a scheduling issue. I'll have to rethink my work days. I'll have to adjust my meal schedule, which matters because I'm in recovery for compulsive overeating, and I generally eat at about the same times every day. Those are all practical changes, but underneath them is a different question. Who am I becoming? Because this isn't just about rearranging my calendar. It's about becoming someone who balances both being an entrepreneur and an employee. And this is again for me, by the way. I've done this before. As I started thinking about this, I realized this isn't the first time I've gone through something like this. When I first started graduate school, I honestly thought when I got there and was there for a little while, how did I get here? I don't think I have what it takes. Everyone around me knew things I'd never heard of. They'd been to academic conferences. Some had already published papers. They understood the culture of academia in a way I just didn't. I wasn't what I call groomed for graduate school the way my peers were. I thought it was going to be more like undergraduate. Nope. I remember laying on my bed looking at my bachelor's degree one day, which I was very proud of because it took me forever to get it. I was 31. And I looked at it and I thought, how did I even get that? For a while, I thought the issue was that I didn't have what it took. eventually I realized that wasn't it at all. I had what it took, it just wasn't what I wanted. Graduate school gave me what I call the backstage view of academia. I loved the intellectual rigor. I loved the knowledge. I didn't love the culture. I didn't love the publish or perish mentality. I didn't love the egos. I didn't love that social scientists publish papers because they have data and have to publish instead of publishing papers because they're trying to heal the world. What I originally interpreted as a lack of ability turned out to be a mismatch of values. That is very different. I had another experience years earlier that changed how I saw myself. After dropping out of college as a teenager, I eventually took a business class through Manchester Community College while I was working in a warehouse. Something clicked. The material made sense to me. I was motivated in a way I hadn't been before because working in retail and warehouses sucked. And I started to be like, oh, maybe there's something to that education thing my parents have been telling me. I found myself reading the textbook until I truly understood it instead of giving up when it became difficult. One day, the professor handed back our exams and announced to the class that he was handing back my lowest test grade to date. It was a 104 because he always gave extra credit. Frankly, I was mortified because being book smart is not particularly valued in a warehouse environment. And people started asking me, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? Now, what changed wasn't my intelligence. What changed was how I understood myself. Until then, I don't think I had ever really thought of myself as smart. I never thought I was dumb, mind you, but I'd also never thought of myself as smart. My older brother was the smart one in my family. Looking back, I think I unconsciously believed somehow that there could only be one smart person per family, which is ridiculous. That experience helped me to begin to tell a new story about who I was. Then there was another transition that changed everything. Guess what? Recovery. When I got into recovery, my life gradually became almost unrecognizable compared to the one I'd been living before. It wasn't just that I'd stopped drinking and drugging and started developing healthier habits. I became someone different, someone who values honesty, who pays attention to herself and her preferences, someone who takes responsibility for her choices, and someone who keeps showing up and is consistent. I also have another enormous transition in my life, or had another enormous transition in my life when I moved from rural Connecticut to New Haven. Before that happened, if you had ever told me that I would one day become a city person, I would have laughed in your face. I just couldn't imagine it. And yet here I am 25 years later, still living in New Haven, and I love it. What changed wasn't just my address, it was my identity. As I look back over all these transitions, I noticed something. Every one of them changed how I saw myself. Some of them confirmed strengths I didn't know I had. Some of them showed me identities I'd outgrown. Some of them helped me discover that what I thought I wanted wasn't actually what I wanted at all. And I wonder if that's why transitions feel so unsettling. We think we're trying to figure out what to do, but underneath that, we're trying to figure out who to be, who we're becoming. That's why I think it's important to be patient with yourself during times of transition. You aren't just learning new routines, you're becoming someone who lives that routine. Those are not the same thing. One of the reasons I believe so strongly in boundaries is because boundaries are also about identity. The boundaries of Barb delineate who I am and who I am not. In other words, they delineate my very identity, where I end and other people begin. Every time you choose to honor yourself instead of overriding yourself, you're reinforcing the person you're becoming. You're building a relationship with yourself based on trust. You're becoming someone who believes your needs matter. And that doesn't happen overnight. It happens choice by choice, boundary by boundary, transition by transition. As I prepare for this next chapter of my own life, I'm reminding myself that I don't have to have it all figured out immediately. I'll experiment with my schedule and I'll adjust my routines. And of course, I'll make some mistakes and then I will learn from them. But more importantly, I'll keep paying attention to my own experience. Because when I look back over my life, the people who I've known who've navigated transitions most successfully weren't the ones with the perfect plan. They were the ones who stayed connected to themselves long enough to recognize who they were becoming. So if you're in the middle of a transition right now, maybe the question isn't simply, how do I get through this? Maybe the better question is, who is this transition inviting me to become? And maybe years from now, you'll look back and smile at something you once believed about yourself that turned out not to be true. Before you go, I want to tell you about Boundary Bootcamp. Most women I work with already know where they need a boundary. The hard part is holding on to what they know when guilt, fear, or someone else's disappointment shows up. On Saturday, September 12th, I'm leading a 6-hour live boundary bootcamp where you'll learn to hear yourself clearly, understand why boundaries collapse under pressure, practice boundary language you can use even when guilt is present, and create a personal boundary blueprint for one real situation in your life. We'll meet live on Zoom from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, and the group is limited to 20 women, so there's room for interaction, practice, and coaching. You can learn more and register at higherpowercc.com/bootcamp. That's higherpowercc.com/bootcamp.